we're looking at.
And I don't, I don't make this work up.
That's foothill country.
You could do,
Hey, let's get those.
you could do motions. You could start.
She's got them right here. Never mind.
You could start
I signed it.
working
He
on
signed it. Did you sign it?
No, I still,
You know,
Jenna.
they passed a lot of state
Into the stamp.
funding for
you know,
transportation.
maybe that, 'cause I gotta tell you, that took an hour for me to read.
Yeah,
is all
right.
stuff from-
And then that we should be able to just do in the stamp. Right.
You're gonna have to.
And I can
I'll fight that.
put together a motion.
No, we're getting
Half the
press
time.
He loves it. He loves
here.
it. More is good.
Information coming.
LA. You know,
Not in
more
which
is good.
It's just, you know, it's not that I can't do it, it's just so
never get
time
bids.
consuming.
No oyster.
Right. No, I know.
He's in there again.
Many hours in the day.
So, what's going on?
She was done with winners a long time ago. No, we're both in Wisconsin.
So this is what we want to say, right?
I
So when the
agree.
principal
My
use
wife
is
does
the
that.
buildings, changes from
Yeah.
either
Winner,
residents
another winner, either.
and the building.
Need all those.
And so I kind of, I'll say convinced her or forced her to stay till.
Sign,
Versus
right?
they can't.
So I'll look at them,
Yeah.
Len's,
get them close and see who's charging us the big money.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's perfect.
He's staying, he's getting married in the spring.
See, I see one for 46,000 right away. It's-
Fargo. But his wife's a large animal. His fiance. And they
What happened to my pen?
practice down there. So they live on a hobby farm.
Took it.
Works remote.
This is Radisson.
Oh, here it is.
I would like to call our Columbus City Council meeting to order. It's August 28th, 2019, 7:03 PM. Our first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag. We'll move on to letter B, the consent agenda. Would somebody please make a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
And a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Letter C, a presentation to amend the Running Aces Harness Park Liquor License Training Program request. In our packets, it's A1 through 6. Is there anyone from Running Aces here? Would you please come up to the front and tell us your name and address for the record and explain what you're asking for?
Name is Robert Aldrich from Running Aces. Address is 15201 Zurich Street, or you want my home address?
Pull the mic a little bit closer. Yep. Thank you.
Address would be 15201 Zurich Street in Columbus, 55025.
All right.
What we're asking for is a small change in our liquor license language to amend it to allow us to include a second training option for all our servers. We have used the TIPS program since we opened and got the license. That's a program that's based out of Virginia or Maryland. We have to certify our instructors, and then we do the training with our own staff. We do it within 90 days of their hire. We've experienced some difficulties with TIPS in trying to get instructors trained because they don't have a lot of classes in this area, and they've had the last two have been canceled, which means we have to scramble to find certified instructors. Our new food and beverage director, who has a long history in the food and beverage industry, have recommended that we take a look at a program that's developed by the Minnesota Licensed Beverage Association, and it's called SAILS. It's referred to there in the handout, selling alcohol legally, effectively, and safely. I've looked at the program, I've talked to their instructors. Their program mirrors the TIPS program almost identically in terms of content, looking at intoxication rate factors, legal laws and legal liabilities, serving strategies, identifying people who have characteristics that are normally associated with intoxication, checking IDs, validating IDs, the process that you use that. And they have instructors here locally that are always available. And then secondly, what they offer is an online training program where the employers will purchase X amount of training sessions on a computer, and those are assigned to employees, and the employees go on and take the training online. And then we are able to manage that and monitor that through a switchboard that comes with the training package. So what it would do for us would allow us to, at the point of hire, tell new employees within 10 days or 14 days they have to successfully complete the training if they want to remain employed. And it allows us also to expand the training to other people than just our servers, so we can get more managers involved in the training program who can sit down at a computer and spend a few hours going through the program, learning all the things that the servers learn, and just add more eyes and ears in the facility to be watching for problems with service on customers. So we're just asking basically that the name of that program be added into the language that allows us to use tips or sales.
All right. Thank you. Anyone have any questions or discussion?
I have a question. Do you know of any other business that is using the sales program?
I talked to the main instructor, and they're all over the state. Our food and beverage director, Jay Johnson, he came from, he ran, part owner of a bar in St. Paul. The name wasn't familiar to me, but they've used it there for many years. And it's commonly known amongst businesses that are members of the Minnesota Licensed Beverage Association, they've been in business since 1952, providing support for retailers who sell and serve liquor in their establishments.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Anything?
Nothing.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to move to accept the sales training program as an alternate to the TIPS training program for the current 2019 running Aces liquor license expiring March 31st, 2020.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
You.
Now we're on to number 7, which is our Planning Commission report.
Yeah.
Is there anyone from the Planning Commission?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. We have a lot of public hearings to address, I guess, tonight. So we'll start with, follow the agenda you have there.
Yep.
The first one we speak about is July 17th, 2019. We had a public hearing for the John Arndt and Richard Korvash petition for an excavation, IUP, and a variance request. This would be PC 19-113 and PC 19-114. The request concerns building a large fish recreational pond, two existing ponds between the properties of the applicants. That would be 7162 and 7222 of 167th Avenue Northeast. This would create a 2.8 acre pond. The applicants have been working with other agencies to gather the necessary permits for the projects prior to bringing the above application to the City of Columbus. The applicants request the IUP for mineral extractions of approximately 16 to 18,000 cubic yards of sand, resulting in an estimated 25 trucks a day for 90 days. The applicants also noted dewatering would be required on the project. The public hearing resulted in a neighbor to the applicants who was in favor of the project, and the applicants also had several letters favoring it also from the neighborhood. There were letters also concerned about the issue from another neighbor that was read in the public record. There were two very vocal members of the city who were against the variance, noting past experience with mining projects and the trucking of sand. After closing the hearing, we viewed the legal requirements for granting a variance, examining the practical difficulties in relation to City Code Section 7A 525. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to deny the variance request, agreeing with the staff's recommendation. Without granting the variance, the IUP for the mineral extraction cannot be granted because the mineral extraction permit must have direct access to a minor arterial or collector roadway. We voted unanimously to deny the variance.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Mr.
Elizabeth?
Mayor, in addition to the planning commissioner's report, we did receive this week a letter from Kelly and Lemons, and in your additions, you'll find a letter from Mr. Arndt's attorney addressing some issues. And I realize that you've received this letter in your additions today, so you may or may not have an opportunity to read through the letter that's presented before you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Does anyone have any more questions for Mr. Hanegraaff?
So I don't have a question, but I'm thinking we probably are going to need some more time to consider this in light of the letter and the fact that our city attorney is on vacation right now. So I'd like to make a motion, if I could, to continue this discussion down the road. Is that all right, Mr. Mayor?
When would you like to have us take it back up?
Well, I think we need to bill back after Labor Day, right? So it'd probably be the 25th. That would make sense that we would take it back up again?
We have a meeting in 2 weeks, and then the next one would be the 25th.
Correct.
So if that's okay, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I second it.
I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of moving this issue to the September 25th meeting, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Nay.
So it passes 4-1. What was your next issue?
The next item on the agenda was on August 21st, 2019, we had a public hearing for Arthur Swartz Jr. of 15452 Zodiac Street for a variance request for a Type 3 mound septic system at 0-inch separation. Excuse me. The public hearing resulted in no one coming forth with new testimony concerning the variance. Since there are no other avenues for the applicant, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to grant the variance, agreeing with the staff's recommendation.
And may I ask why why is that the only choice?
That was, there's no other choice on the property, I gather, according to, for that type of system, was the third.
All right.
What-
And you voted again, I'm sorry, unanimously?
Unanimously, I gather from talking to the building inspector and everybody that there's a number of these systems in the city. In fact, like 15% or something like that, or whatever. There's a number of them. It's not unusual, and it's the last route they can go.
Is this a wetland issue, Elizabeth?
You know, in this particular case, I do not think it's a wetland issue. I think in this particular case, the water table is high, and there isn't a single place that has 12 inches of undisturbed soil in order to meet to the requirements.
I believe this property is only an acre and a half, too. It's very small,
It's a smaller lot, yeah.
not our average 5.
All right, then would someone make a motion?
So I'll move to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation of approval based on adopting the findings of fact 1 through 6 in the Columbus staff report dated August 16th, 2019, and the building official's memo dated August 5th, 2019, for the variance application at 15452 Zodiac Street to install a Type 3 mound system at 0 inches with 3 feet clean sand lift in lieu of the 12 inches separation with the following 2 conditions: that the Type 2 system follow the design, maintenance, and mitigation standards as outlined by the Minnesota Rules, Chapter 7080, and that the Type 3 system proposed must follow the maintenance and management plan contained in the application dated May 23rd, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right.
On August 21st, 2019, we had our second public hearing for Freeway Mini Storage 14474 West Freeway Drive for a variance request from the required 30-foot front yard setback for an accessory RV storage. The public hearing resulted in no one coming forth with new testimony concerning the variance. The issue of the 30-foot front yard setback was not the result of the applicant, but of the county making a right-hand turn lane on Freeway Drive and water delineation in the rear of the property. A number of the planning commissioners visited the location, and without getting out a tape measure, we see no great harm or any issues on the sites for the setback. Reviewing the staff report, the commissioners concurred with the findings and voted unanimously to recommend the variance for freeway mini storage.
At this time, I will recuse myself from the issue, and Janet will take over, and then I'll be back.
A call for any discussion from the council or questions to Mr. Hanegraaff? And if not, would anybody like to propose a motion to accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Let's shorten it up some, Danny.
Thank you, Janet. All right. And then,
Finally, on August 20, well, not finally, but on August 21st, 2019, we continued the public hearing and discussion on City Code Chapter 7B sign regulations, Section 7B-3110, the I-35 corridor, large off-premises signs, more notably the billboards. Opening up the hearing, we had a representative from Clear Channel Outdoor, Matthew Whelan. He talked about the cost on updating the static signs and their concerns about the proposed billboard ordinance amendment updates as written. We then had a representative from Schubert and Huey Outdoor Advertising and addressed the commission, and he also had concerns about the proposed ordinance, mainly the modified section portion in the ordinance 7B-310-F. There were no other speakers that stepped forward that evening, and the open hearing was closed. The commission discussed the testimony and reviewed the letter from Larkin and Hoffman dated August 21st concerning policy questions of sections 7B, 310A, and B. A motion was made to recommend approval of the changes to the City Council for Chapter 7B sign regulations, Section 7B-310, amended to allow the billboards currently standing in the CR district to remain, and all other changes to the ordinance be made as written. And what we're talking about is There is one billboard in the CR district, and it's right on the south edge of 15131 Feller Street, which would be Harold's Towing and Forest Lake Trailer, that we believe can stay. Otherwise, we voted and passed this recommendation on to you on a vote of 4-1.
Is there anyone with any questions or discussion points?
Elizabeth?
In your packet, you have an attorney memo from addressing that a memo from the attorney that the Planning Commission addressed with several policy issues. And coming out of that discussion, Ben, our Planning Commission tech, put together a map for you. And if you look at the map, there's a legend up at the top of the page. And what he did was he kind of summarized a few of the issues. And because I had some questions, there were some questions about existing conditional use permits. And in this particular case, there are 7 CUPs, and they're identified with a red diamond. And then the others are color-coded, and you have, the yellow is residential, the beige is vacant land, blue is wetland, and then the pinkish color are billboards that have a conflict in land use as a result of the amendment to the billboard ordinance. In looking at the overall ordinance, there are a couple of different items. Looking at the first item, it was whether or not we wanted to look at a 20-foot setback. And I think the consensus from the Planning Commission was that they didn't think the 20-foot setback was appropriate. And I'm not sure how the council feels, but if you want to walk through the 4 items, or do you just want to?
I would say go ahead and walk through them, please.
Okay. So if there's consensus by the council that you feel, again, that the new billboards would not have to meet the 20-foot setback requirement, then we would direct the attorney to remove that language. I think the background on this one is that there is existing billboards today, and those existing billboards have easements, and those easements are already established. And when we talk to the billboard companies, even if there was a new digital billboard, they would perhaps use the same base and just basically change out the faces in order to make it electronic. So they would not be looking at a different setback. And we are maxed out at the number of billboards, so there really isn't a place for a new billboard, as the Planning Commission recommended that they didn't want to see additional billboards in and around the freeway interchange. So there wouldn't really be any billboards to meet that 20-foot setback. So if the consensus is no, that we would take that out, that would be direction for the attorney. The second policy question was surrounded the Hoy billboard, and that was when the Planning Commission was talking about the commercial retail district, I think they used it as a reference, not necessarily singling out one billboard and indicating that they didn't want to see it in a commercial retail. And it just so happened, if you look at the first page of the map that Ben put together, there were only 2 billboards that would have been impacted, one of which is a conditional use permit, and that wouldn't be impacted because that stands. And the other one would have been the Hoy billboard if you used the commercial retail district as the area that billboards were prohibited. The recommended language from the Planning Commission was that they felt maybe a different measure could be taken. In other words, some circumference, some area that was more about the intent, and the intent was we don't want billboards on the entrance and exit ramps, and we don't want additional billboards in the commercial retail area, not necessarily targeting the Hoy Schubert billboard.
May I interrupt?
Sure.
some time back, there was discussion about the city having turned from a township to a city. There were no billboards allowed right around the exit on-off ramps. But because we turned into a city, then someone had discussed putting in a billboard.
That is correct. When we established the district 20 years ago, the maximum amount of billboards were built, with the exception of one area. It was permitted or had an interim use permit, but wasn't actually constructed. And as a township, the MnDOT regulates billboards on and exit ramps, and so you're prohibited from putting one up. When we became a city, unknowns to us and others, that regulation goes away. And so it led to the opportunity that you could have billboards adjacent to the exit and on ramps. And when discussed, the planning commission recommended against that. And again, I don't think it was to single out the Hoy Schubert billboard. It was more about not wanting billboards around the exit and on ramps. The third item on the list was about upgrades to brick and stone facade. There was a fair amount of testimony about the brick facade and the cost, and there was some talk about perhaps, facelift to the billboards and not so much the brick and stone facade. There wasn't any alternatives talked about at that meeting, at the planning commission meeting, and so it comes to you with that language in order to, or requiring the existing structures to upgrade to brick or stone. I don't know how the council feels about that language. It was brought up at the hearing that they felt it would be very costly to put the additional brick and stone on each of the billboards.
Were there any numbers at the planning commission, what defining costly? Do we know what, has anyone contacted you, asked, describing what they were describing as a facelift, as a touch-up?
Kind of confusing me. What's the question again?
Has anyone from the sign companies approached you or Elizabeth, you, saying what a touch-up or a facelift would entail?
They didn't, at the meeting, there wasn't anything offered, and no one has contacted the city to offer any language.
Because as we've stated, with the completion of the new bridge, and as we try to define our area, we really would like to have it dressed up a little bit. You're coming to the entrance of our city, one of the main entrances to our city, and that's where we came up with the brick facade, et cetera. So I think we want to pursue that.
So, or we could, direct staff to contact the representatives from the billboard companies and ask them to submit a proposal of what that would actually look like that we could consider in lieu of the brick facade. I mean, I know I heard discussion about that, but we didn't have any specifics, and so if we want to consider something other than that, I think we need some specifics. They're probably in the best position to be able to provide those to us. I see a nod back there.
So just for clarification, you're indicating that perhaps you would look at alternate language if you saw a proposal of
Right.
some sort from the billboard companies as to what they feel is appropriate.
Well, as a cost-effective alternative to the brick facade, and then, if we agree on that, then we can have the attorney incorporate that into the new ordinance language.
I know it was important for the planning commission because we had a fair amount of discussion about the name, the city of Columbus, being a part of that upgrade. So would that be something you would want in the design?
Yeah. Yes, I think so. I don't know, what do you guys think?
I don't understand what he's talking about.
So when we originally talked about, or when they originally talked about upgrading the billboards so that they would have a brick facade instead of the post. And what we heard from the representatives of the company was that for the static billboards, that's too costly
Okay.
to do that. But then they also said that they would be willing to do like a upgrade or a facelift in lieu of that, costly, but they didn't come up with what that meant. So I think we should just ask them to propose what might work to kind of achieve what we're looking for, which is a better looking sign in that district, but not one that is going to be cost prohibitive for the company.
Okay, thank you.
But I think it would include the name of Columbus on the sign.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jeff, anything?
How many billboards are we talking about on that scenario?
In the whole corridor?
Just for the Columbus on the side and upgrading the sign?
Well, it would be the ones that are under an IUP that, as they come up for renewal. So is it, what, 27? Is that how many there were?
I know Clear Channel had 27. I think there's 36 altogether.
Over 30.
I think 27 was the count on 35E.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, I believe, and then there was a
Yeah.
few on 35W.
So it'd basically be those that are under an IUP that are coming up for renewal.
We'd ask all those billboards to upgrade the looks.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if I may, just to clarify, I think it's 29 are subject to an IUP, and they would be required to upgrade as it's currently drafted upon the issuance of a new interim use permit.
The conditional use permits wouldn't come up for, they're already issued. The last item on the attorney memo addressed the fact that, and it kind of correlates with the map here, where you have, we tried to draft language based around a principal use. There was some indication by the city council that they wanted to look at language that looked at a principal use as a billboard, and perhaps that if there was a business on that property or a new business on the property, that the billboard would then be eliminated. And that's where this map came into play, because we weren't quite sure how many properties would be impacted by the new ordinance. And so, looking at the legend, we had 4 properties that had a conflicting land use, meaning that there's a billboard today and that there's a business also on the same property. The others, there's 14 in wetland, and so there wouldn't be a conflicting use. And then in the future, if residential land or vacant land, because the language today allows a billboard with a single-family residence, vacant land, or an agricultural use, that they would be put on notice, and then eventually those 10 billboards would go away or not be able to to apply for a new permit. We weren't quite, I'm not really sure, we didn't really land on whether the interim use permit would be immediately extinguished, or whether the term of 10 years would be allowed to stay. And Jake, I'm not sure how that would work, but the intent was that when one use, new use on the property, the old use would go away.
Right, and the way that it's currently drafted is that this would be a terminating or a sunset incident or occurrence. So that IUP would terminate upon the redevelopment of the site.
So even if it's in year 6,
Correct, that's how it's currently.
if the land is sold, somebody starts building something new?
Right, this language includes either the subdivision of the land or the redevelopment of the land for a non-residential, and we've clarified that that's non-residential, non-agricultural use, so commercial, industrial.
Does everybody get all that?
So it doesn't impact billboards that currently are on a plot that has a residential or business. It would only be if that principal use changes.
I believe based on the discussion coming out of the planning commission, is that the guidance out of the planning commission was that that the current language should be modified to clarify that this would only occur upon the establishment of new
New.
development that doesn't exist on the effective
Correct.
date of the ordinance.
Right.
We need to work on that specific language, make sure that it's workable, but that would allow those 4 billboards that are on what we're calling conflicting land use parcels to apply for reissuance of an IUP.
And it could potentially put on notice the 4 that are on residential and the 6 that are on vacant land, that should there be development, they would have to take the billboard down.
Correct, and that would be a condition of approval for any newly issued IUP. So that the existing IUPs can run their course, and then when they come apply for the new IUP under this new language, that would be subject to that termination provision.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're going to ask the billboard company to do a better job on their stands, holding the sign, upgrade those, and then we'll say, well, we don't know how long you're going to be able to stay there, though. So why would they want to put any money into the billboard?
Well, the IUP would be for 10 years, so if nothing changes, it would be re-looked at in 10 years. But essentially, there should be discussion between the landowner and the company about what future plans might be in play for the development of that land, if any. Maybe it wouldn't.
So then what's the next step, Elizabeth?
The next step.
Direction to,
The next step is really direction. I know I've outlined several of those items. It's whether the council agrees with those items or if you want to amend or tweak any of those items, and then give direction to our city attorney to draft a final draft of the ordinance and bring it back at your next meeting along with a summary publication in order to publish in the paper to make it effective.
has anyone anything to add, different or otherwise? And if not, would someone like to do we make a motion then for direction or just?
Mr. Mayor, if you could, if you're generally in agreement with those provisions, I think what we'd like right now is some direction. And I'd like to just go through, make sure I understand what I've heard.
Okay.
And then we will bring that back for review and adoption at the next meeting or whenever you'd like.
Okay. So do you want to go through the list from the top?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So it looks,
Removing the setback language.
right, removing the 20-foot setback for, and I believe it is, currently it's, in the current language, it's 5 feet.
Correct.
We can strike that language altogether, since there's not going to be any newly issued ones, or we can leave it. At the end of the day, I don't know that necessarily matters, but we can draft accordingly.
Okay.
There's direction to come up with some language that would allow the one existing billboard in the CR district, so we'll likely be using some sort of measurement from the interchange to preclude any new IUPs to be issued here, but would allow them to apply for a new IUP.
All right.
With respect to facade, we have direction to work with the billboard owners to request some proposals that would allow us to get some different ideas, potentially propose some different language that would work. At a minimum, it needs to include some comparable improvement, I understand. We'll let them kind of come up with that language and what that proposal would look like, and then we can bring back those options. But it would also include the City of Columbus name.
Correct.
And the last is that we will allow for the existing billboards, the 4 existing billboards that are co-located with what we're calling a conflicting land use to apply, and we'll come up with language that would only preclude or require termination of that IUP upon new development not occurring on the date of the ordinance. And we'll come up with a language that's workable for that and defensible.
All right?
All right?
The only last thing that I just noted here, that I wanted to make sure, the planning commission was recommending a term of 10 years.
Correct.
Yep.
Someone like to make the motion, please?
So I move to direct the city attorney to draft the final ordinance for the city code, Chapter 7B sign regulations for the I-35 corridor, large off-premise signs to reflect the city council discussion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So at the next meeting or the meeting after, do you think?
At this point, if we're going to be requesting information from the future applicants and the current owners, I think we should probably put that out to be September, is it the 26th?
Oh, actually, maybe even longer, because what I was thinking is we would give the sign companies like 4 weeks to come back with their proposal, so then we would get them in 4 weeks around the 25th, and then
Okay.
we probably would be the one after that.
Do we have any IUPs that we anticipate are going to be reapplying this year? I just want to make sure. Okay.
No.
That should work. So we'll put the request to the billboard owners to come back, and we'll bring it back in a timely manner.
Thank you.
Ron, did you talk about the joint meeting or the meeting in your report? Otherwise, I'll take it up.
Well, you can take it up, but we
Okay.
did discuss, want to say one thing right off the bat, to thank all the council members and the mayor for being at our meetings, because they kind of see what we're, what we're presented with. But we did have the Northeast Quad Design Standards for the high-density mixed-use district. It came, and we discussed that, and we came up, well, it was come up about a conclusion about getting a workshop, because Dean Johnson can help us out a lot more than what we were at that meeting. It was a lot of decision-making, and it was kind of confusing, so I think a workshop would be and Elizabeth, you can probably elaborate on that, you sat through it.
So Dean was at the last meeting, and we talked a lot about design standards, and I think Dean had an approach where he wanted to take more of an approach of a percentage for building materials, and I think with all the new building materials on the market, it's a learning curve for everyone to look at what they feel is appropriate in that district. And so in looking at that, the planning commission felt, because we didn't have any applications for September 4th, it would be more like a workshop, and to really dive deep into the design standards and discussion. And so Dean put together an outline for the discussion. It's in your packet, because he felt perhaps the city council also wanted to discuss the design standards, and then maybe give direction to the planning commission as to what next steps to take, as we've had this format in 2 previous meetings, and I think it helped carved out the direction for the planning commission to take after the council set policy in place of what direction they'd like to take. So if the council chooses to use that model, where you would meet earlier, and then the planning commission can listen to that discussion, and then the planning commission have their own, or whether you would like a joint meeting, I think it's up to the council as to what they choose is more appropriate.
Let me lead the discussion. I like it when the two groups follow each other. So if the city council can listen to it, to a presentation, and whoever from the planning commission can be there and listen to it. And then when our time is done and the planning commission takes over, they've already got a baseline. I mean, they're farther ahead than where we started. They can take all the information that we've heard and discussed, add their own discussion and thoughts on top of it. And I think in one 4-hour period or however long it takes, we end up being farther ahead with thinking it all through and then coming up with decisions. So I would prefer to do the city council first at 4 o'clock, right? And then have the planning commission come listen to it if they're able to, and if not, pick up at 6 o'clock and have Dean go through it again. And by the time we're done with the night, we should have some pretty solid ideas of what we are accepting for our design standards. So would anyone like to make that motion?
What day was it?
September 4th, 4 PM.
So it would be meeting from 4 to 6, an hour off, and then the planning commission would start at 7.
Because that's a regular planning commission night, correct?
It's a regular planning commission meeting, yes.
And they need time for a workshop, right? You guys want to have a workshop.
There's no applications that night. That's why they wanted to use their
The
meeting.
whole
as a
meeting will
workshop.
become the workshop, right?
Yeah.
All right.
We might be home by 8 o'clock.
I doubt it.
All right, who wants to make the motion? Anyone?
So I'll move to call a special meeting for the city council on Wednesday, September 4th, 2019 at 4 PM to discuss the design standards for the high-density mixed-use district.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. What else?
That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
That's it? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now we're on to number 8, public open forum. Is there anyone here who would like to speak at public open forum? Come up to the mic and give us your name and address, please.
I'm going to pull this closer because one of the problems back there is you don't hear much. So
Yep.
people leave because they can't hear.
Pull it.
Some people have voices that carry, some don't. I'm here just to say a few things.
Oh, name and address first.
Seal Nyhart,
Thank you.
18516 Vassar Street, Forest Lake, Columbus, Minnesota. I just want to say a few things. The first is, we had a hard-fought, long-fought battle over the ordinance that stopped the trucks from running on the roads that they don't belong on. And I'm hoping that the sight of an attorney in the room tonight didn't scare anybody off, because if that passes, my feeling is somebody else will get an attorney to try to get it done too. So I think it's just going to open the Pandora's box to the whole mess again. And that's one of the things I'm very concerned about. We don't want to go back to where we were, and I really believe that bringing an attorney in makes it look, oh boy, we better do something right here. Well, I think what was done right was already done, and I think we need to keep it as is. I don't want to have another battle back in my neighborhood, and I don't for 1 minute believe that you pay for an attorney for a little 90-day project. That's my feeling. Okay? That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
What's going on with the no halt signs? Were they going to post those roads? Did you look into that?
I don't remember where we landed on the no halt. I think we needed a resolution or an ordinance, and I don't remember where we landed on those. I think we need to amend the ordinance in order to do that.
Okay.
I just think we have to amend the ordinance.
Yeah, I think we're talking about adding additional roads to the no-haul routes. Yeah, we would just need to amend the ordinance, and we've done that in the last month or two, I believe. So it would be a pretty straightforward ordinance if we're looking at that.
Well, thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? If not, we will move on to number 9, which is the direction for the Joe Durrell street rural residential district speed posting, and it's pages 14 to 18 in our packets.
At our last meeting, the council asked the staff to look at Jodrell Street, as several council members attended the Night to Unite celebration in Columbus, and on Jodrell Street, there were several members that approached council members asking whether or not the speed limit could be reduced, as it was 55 miles an hour in that area. And during this week, I asked Ben to look at the pictometry to see if he could figure that out for all of you. And he was able to do that, and in your additions, there's a study that he did, both for just Jodrell, and then also the areas attached to Jodrell, which would be 137th and Nebula. And both of those studies showed that the driveway or access points were less than 300 feet apart for a quarter mile or more, which meets the criteria for posting 35 miles per hour. Our city engineer provided the criteria, and then we created the maps and charts following the email from our city engineer. I've also asked our city attorney what method, because it didn't tell me exactly what method, ordinance, resolution, or motion, that we were able to do this, if you were inclined to approve a 30-mile-an-hour district. And I'll turn the forum over to Jake.
Sure, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So there are two ways as of the first of this month. There's a new statute in effect. So there's two ways that the city can establish, well, I guess now three ways that the city can establish a speed limit. First, there's the standard speed limits that are in statute that you just need to adopt a resolution to approve and put up the signs. The second would be asking the commissioner to do a transportation study or a traffic study, and that's the Commissioner of Public Safety. It's a pretty involved process. But the third, as of the first of this month, the city can establish a somewhat nebulous, consistent and understandable policy and procedure for adopting speed limits that are outside of what has been set in the statute. So for example, this 40 mile per hour requested on, I think it was Howard Lake Drive?
Yes.
Is now, as of the first of the month, something that we can do on our own without going to the Commissioner of Public Safety if the city establishes a procedure. There are some minimum standards in the statute. There's some engineering, internationally adopted engineering standards that we need to take into consideration, but it's something that we can now do on our own without having to go to the commissioner. So with respect to these two different roads, we just need a resolution. If you would like to approve 35 mile per hour, I think it's rural residential designation, we can draft that. And the second thing that we're looking for direction on is whether or not you want to establish a policy and procedure for, I guess, kind of what we'll call discretionary speed limits.
Elizabeth, would you explain to everyone why this became an issue, or why it was brought up to your attention?
You know, I had a property owner approach me, or actually he called me and indicated that he felt that in his particular street that the traffic was just going too fast, and he felt that there were a lot of twists and turns at 55 miles an hour. He didn't think it was safe. And then I think he understood that there was a Night to Unite party and decided to take his cause and share it with the community and all of you, that he felt it was important that the speed limit be reduced in this area. So I think I've talked to him several times, and Darwin, are you here? So, and so at this point, I brought it to the council. Council directed us to then put the chart together, and we've done that, and now we're back here, and called Darwin to let him know that he was on the agenda.
And so actually, do we have to do two resolutions? One for this particular instance and then one to begin work on an ordinance? Or is it all one?
Mr. Mayor, it would be one resolution for for Joe Durrell to have staff draft a resolution that would allow posting at 35 mile per hour. And the second would be direction to prepare an ordinance establishing procedure for setting speed limits on the city streets.
So two separate resolutions.
And frankly, the second piece is really just direction from you, and if you'll give us direction, then we can run with it.
So is there any discussion? Anyone?
Well, I was at the party, and I was wondering, is there anybody that's going to come back and say, we don't want it to be reduced?
Oh, I'm sure they will. Do we, 35, I see we're moving Howard Lake up, we're talking about moving Howard Lake up to 40 from 35?
That was the direction we were given.
So do we want to set this at 35 or 40? 30? No,
You can set it at 40 if you're going to designate it a rural residential district. That sets it at 35.
okay.
So the second motion or direction Jake was talking about was if you want to be able to establish different speed zones, then we can go investigate that path.
Okay,
So it would have to be 35.
35. Direct city, I'd like to make a motion to direct city staff, draft resolution approving the posting of Jordell Street from Pine Street to the end of New Bella Street at 35 miles per hour.
All those in favor, or is there a second?
Second.
And I'd add it by establishing it a rural residential district.
Okay.
We have a second.
Establishing a rural residential district.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes.
Then we need direction to setting the speed limits on city streets. So you,
Second of that?
that's a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. For direction
All right,
passes.
35 it will be.
Now we're on to letter D, engineer report. Dennis?
Yes, I do have a number of items this evening. First one is a motion for, actually, the page numbers
Or reversed.
Are reversed, thank you. I was looking for the right word. So we'll stay with page 48 and 49, which is actually the in-control SCADA project pay request number one, the second motion. And so I'm looking for a motion to approve the pay request. This is for the SCADA electrical work that was done for the water system in relation to the Ziegler tank. So that work has been done. We're looking for a motion to approve pay request number one, which is in the amount of $73,619.30.
And a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And the next one is pages 50 through 52, which is the Metro Utilities partial pay request number two. This is the Northeast Quadrant Utilities. So there's a small second pay request for some of the finishing work they did. There's still a few items, punch list items remaining, so it's not the final pay request. But we're looking for a motion to approve pay request number two to Metro Utilities for $11,058.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
The next item is looking for a motion to approve a resolution, which is a three-way cooperative agreement between MnDOT, Anoka County, and the City of Columbus. This is regarding Hornsby Street. And this is specifically for if you recall, there's several funding pots that this project is made up of. This is for the work on Highway 97, which is why MnDOT's a party. And it lists we prepared an estimate for what we thought the amount of work was related to 97. And if you look back in the back pages, 67 through 70, there's some cost estimates there. We had come up with a rough number, about $634,000 for the work on 97, which includes half the signal. MnDOT had granted a cooperative agreement for $446,000, and subtracting some state furnished materials, it means that there is an amount that the city is responsible for, and somewhere in that $220,000 range. So this agreement sets that together. Now, bids have come in, and I'll get to those later, and they came in favorably, so those numbers will go down some. But this agreement just establishes those, the agreement for the funding mechanism and the fact that the county is administering the project on behalf of the city.
Need a motion?
Please.
What
Need a
number is it?
resolution number.
It's Resolution 1921.
Move to approve resolution number 1921, approving MinDOT contract. Is that where we're at? Contract?
Yep.
Contract number 1028-357, Cooperation Construction Agreement.
And a second, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
The next item is another motion related to the Hornsby Street project. Related to the MinDOT's design-build project, actually. This is a resolution for a limited use permit for the trail on Trunk Highway 97 that MinDOT is building as part of the design-build project. So there's some maps in the back. It's the trail on the north side of 97 from New Hornsby to the north side of Holiday, basically. So it includes the trail along 97. That trail goes down the center of the new diverging diamond bridge and then back on the north side. So this agreement establishes the fact that the city would be maintaining that trail. And that was part of the understanding all along.
All right, motion to approve resolution number 1922, approving MinDOT limited use permit trail agreement.
Second, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right.
And the last one is an update on the projects going on, city projects going on in the city. So A19 in your packet is a summary of the bid results for Hornsby Street. We had prepared an estimate quite a while ago that of about $1.7 million based on bids this summer coming in high. We revised those numbers to an engineer's estimate of just under $2 million. And our last estimate, based on the most recent bid prices we were seeing, was around $2.2 million was our estimate for the project. The county is administering this. They opened bids Tuesday and got 5 bids, the lowest one being $1.89 million from Forest Lake Contracting. So in this current climate, that's a pretty good bid.
They must have seen Dressel's bid.
Not till they were opened. There was, second bidder was only $6,000 more than the low bidder. So information, and we'll use those numbers to, for this agreement, the cooperative agreement that we just talked about, and reduce those numbers. Those are estimated numbers. Staying with that Hornsby Street project, then the anticipated construction is, the county needs to award the project. I think it's going to their board meeting on September 10th. We want to get started with construction as soon after that as possible. So mid-September till as long as they can go this fall. The way the contract is written is that Hornsby Street North leg would get done this fall. And in the spring would be the work on 97, the signal, and there's some work on the south leg of Hornsby as well to make that a full signaled intersection.
So would they open North Hornsby all the way to Forest Lake
That's
this
the
fall,
intent.
hopefully?
The intent is, yeah, if that
Yeah.
if that can get done.
Good.
We'll also be in timing with the design-build project, which might have been delayed a little bit with some of the construction items this summer. But their batch plant has access to 97 aside from our project, separate from.
So the batch plant will stay there in operation while they build
Yeah,
the new reconfigured Hornsby.
and they have access south to 97 that doesn't interfere with our project.
And what have you heard from MinDOT on the closed ramps? It's been already, what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, a
10
week and a
days.
half, almost 2. I haven't heard a finishing date other than per contract, they're allowed up to 40 days.
But it's going well? You haven't heard
Haven't heard it otherwise.
that it wasn't? All right. Everybody's anxiously waiting.
Yeah.
Left-hand turn off that bridge.
Quick other update on the other projects. We just approved a change, or pay request for the Northeast Quadrant Utilities. That project's done. have some punch list items from the contractor to fix some minor items on the manholes. The 2019 street improvement project is also 95, well, it's 100% done. We still have another pay request to finalize. The contractor took care of some punch list items there. And we're continuing to work on the southwest area utilities. If you ever drive down 54 over 35W, you still see construction going on both sides of the road. That's our project. And finishing up the sanitary sewer and water main and getting that lift station up and running. Had a few more issues with construction, just site conditions when we were drilling directional drilling the sewer and water under 54. So we'll be coming back next meeting or so with the status of that. And that's all I had.
I have a question for you. We had 2 requests from residents. I think I talked to you about it last time. One was about posting something on a curve because people were sliding off in the wintertime, and then another was from a problem with Camp 3 and asking whether or not there could be some signage put on Kettle River that would alert traffic to blind intersection. Have we heard anything back from Anoka County on that? Because they were going to send somebody out.
Yeah, I have not. I will follow up with them. We had, was that maybe a couple months ago already about the
Yeah,
curve?
yeah.
So we had sent a request to the county to investigate that. I had not contacted them about Camp 3,
Okay.
so between staff or I, we can do that.
Could you do that? Because I know I'm being asked about where we are with that, and it's been quite, at least for the first one, it's been quite a while.
Yeah. So I'll follow up with the first one, and then we'll make the second contact.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are down to
11.
attorney report.
Mr. Mayor, no report.
City council members report.
I have no report.
I was just wondering if we could show the YouTube video that is highlighting our Fall Fest. It's really nice that, talk about where it's going to be.
Ta-da.
Very nice.
So how did this come to be?
For several years, we've asked LATV to do a promo video for the Fall Fest, and this year Paul put the video together with a little bit different spin, and I think he did a great job.
Did a really
Yeah.
great job. Thank you.
Ta-da.
So where are we gonna, we'll have that on our website? Where else?
It's on Facebook already,
Okay,
and you go through it. You can share it with other people.
good.
Thanks for sharing it, Denny.
Jeff, have you anything?
No, I have nothing to report.
Shelley?
Nothing?
And I have nothing. Public Works report. Public Information Coordinator report.
Yeah, I have something tonight.
All right.
I just wanted to update the council on the Haggard Park land sale situation. So we are kind of working on the title review at the moment. We received a title commitment back, and so we're starting the title review process. The next steps will be to finish the title review and then schedule a neighborhood meeting to discuss the land that's needed for the road and the cul-de-sac. And I guess my question for you council members and mayor, if you would like to get the neighborhood meeting on the calendar to kind of get things rolling, or if you would rather wait to get the title review back, make sure everything's locked up, all squared away before the meeting. My recommendation, if you wanted to get the neighborhood meeting on the calendar, was early October, mid-October, just to give enough time. And answer any questions you might have.
So what do we think of the offer to pay the back taxes from Wendy and sell it that way to the original owner's granddaughter, or what are we thinking?
Well, the family did come forward and offer what they recommended, what they believed was the right option, and one of them was to sell the property back to the heirs of the original property owners, or to offer it to neighboring properties. And I think the last time we talked about this, Bill had said that he was gonna do a little bit of research and see if we can sell the property to offer it to one family or the neighboring properties, or if we're obligated to open it up to the public. And I don't know that we have gotten that research
Yeah,
back yet.
I believe that research is still being done and
Yeah.
should be ready for the next meeting.
Yeah,
We'll have to wait on that. We're going further.
So why don't we wait until the next meeting? If
yeah,
have Bill bring back whatever he's found. And by then you should have your title. We're closer to finished.
closer to finished, yeah.
And then let's discuss it. Please remind us again.
Yeah.
We'll bring it up
And then,
because it'll be still mid-October or
Yeah.
late October.
Yeah.
That'll be here before we know it.
Yep,
and then are you getting back to Wendy on her question? Just, okay, good, thanks.
yep.
All right. Anything else?
No, that's it.
City Administrator's report.
I just have one item on the agenda, and it's a recap of our workshop items. Just wanted to review the direction from that meeting, so it's on the record. The first item we talked about was JP Commerce and the building construction materials as it deviated from the conditional use permit and/or building permit that was issued earlier this year and last year. And my recollection from the workshop is that the recommendation direction from the city council was we were going to discuss at our next city staff meeting the next steps in relation to the conditional use permit and the TIF district, and also we'll review it with Julie Gennington and Bill as to whether or not this affects the promissory note for that district. The second item, I wasn't clear on, but I wanted to make sure that I had direction. At this point, the building official, he's getting ready to do the final inspections for the certificate of occupancy, and wanted to make sure that whether or not we wanted to issue that certificate of occupancy while we were trying to come to resolution of this issue about building design standards.
I would say don't issue it.
So do we,
I'm not sure what the legal ramifications are. So the situation here is JP Commerce, they applied for a conditional use permit. The conditional use permit was based on a exposed aggregate building. That was the building elevations and site plan that was approved. The building permit came in, again, with the exposed aggregate, and they did not build that style building.
Do we know when or about when they should be done with construction?
Leon thought he's still waiting for one or two items in order to complete the building. Just today, they put the second lift on, and I think they were going to stripe the parking lot. And there's one engineering item revolving around the glass doors that is still open. So he thought it would be in the next week or so.
Well, I believe the next staff meeting is next week, so we should be able to address the issue ahead of time. We likely have the authority to withhold the certificate of occupancy until we resolve the building material issue. If it does require a conditional use permit amendment, it may be required to come back before the city issues it. But ultimately, that is your, that's your hammer, and that's your leverage to require them to comply with the conditions of their permit.
So do we need a motion on this? Or
At this point, I think what we'll do is we'll confirm that there's no issue with withholding that, and we'll coordinate with the building official on that and bring it back at the next council meeting.
Thank you. Anything else, Elizabeth?
The second item that we discussed was the Hornsby Street project. And I think as a consensus, we indicated that it would be a 2020 project, but that you wanted to get more information on the special assessment benefit value, which I will get from Tim Rye in our attorney's office, and then also additional finance information for different scenarios for funding the amount needed for the road improvement project.
Correct. Everyone agree that's what we all talked about? All right, so, and that's it from you?
That's it.
So if you'll go on to letter E, announcements is Planning Commission meetings, September 4th, 2019 at 7 PM. Yes. So would someone like the motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone.